What are jazz standards that can help you improve quickly but not leave your brain hurting? Well, today I'm going to show you an easy jazz standard that does exactly that. Coming right up. What's up, Brent here from Learn Jazz Standards, where we help musicians just like you learn how to play jazz, all while shortening the learning curve no matter what instrument you play. On this channel, we do a lot of jazz theory and jazz improv tips, jazz practicing tips, as well as deep dives into jazz standards like we're doing in today's video. So make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification button to never miss out on anything going on here. I'm going to show you a jazz standard that not only is fairly simple to play and learn, but also really packs a big punch. And I'm gonna give you 3 different reasons why learning this jazz standard is actually gonna really compound and help you learn and play other jazz standards exponentially better. And no, it's not Autumn Leaves and it's not a blues, just to spoiler that away. It's the jazz standard called There Is No Greater Love. So first of all, why is this tune easy? So There Is No Greater Love is easy for 2 reasons. One, from the harmony, it has some very simple harmony where it's only going through 2 different key centers. So it's going through the key center of B flat major as well as G minor. We're gonna go over that really quick and look at a chords analysis. But the second thing is because the melody is kind of simple and repeatable. Sounds like this. So that's just the A section. So you can hear it kind of repeats itself quite a bit. And then when we get to the B section, it sounds like this. Right? And then it just repeats itself again. So beautiful melody, really simple. You can use the melody actually to solo when you're actually playing a solo over top of There's No Greater Love. So not a bad melody to learn, and also the harmony is relatively simple. But speaking of the harmony, let's go ahead and jump right into looking at this tune, and we're gonna look at a chords analysis here, and I'm gonna give you 3 reasons why this is gonna really be a powerful tune for you to learn. Reason number 1 is that we are dealing with relative keys, okay? The relative major and the relative minor. Take a look over here. So we got a B flat major 7, which has 2 flats, B flat and E flat. So that is the parent key of the tune. Now, when we talk about relative keys, we're talking about a major key and a minor key that are related to each other with the scale that is associated with them. So in this particular case, we go down to the bridge section, and that was the part that goes, right? So it's A minor 7 flat 5 D7 to a G7, and the G7 is the relative minor. So really those are just the 2 main key centers of the tune, but they're also related to each other. So a lot of the notes that we're working with when we're improvising or walking bass lines or comping, they have relations to each other, and you're gonna see relative keys come up in tons of jazz standards. Obviously, Autumn Leaves is one that you see it, but lots of other jazz standards. So if you understand the concept of relative keys, then everything is gonna make a lot more sense when you see it come up in other jazz standards. Reason number 2 that There's No Greater Love is gonna really give you a good bang for your buck is it is an amazing study of 2-5-1 chord progressions, okay? So to understand what 2-5-1 chord progressions are in the first place, let's quickly take a look at this major diatonic series of 7th chords. So the major diatonic series of 7th chords is essentially harmonizing a major scale with 7th chords. So let's go to the teacher's key really quick to C major. So we have C major 7 is the 1, D minor 7 is the 2, E minor 7 is the 3, F major 7 is the 4, G7 is the 5, A minor 7 is the 6th, and then B minor 7 flat 5 is the 7th, and resolve it up to the 1 again, right? So when we take a look at the major diatonic series of 7th chords, what's a 2-5-1 in the key of B flat major? Well, it's C minor 7 is the 2, F7, and then B flat major 7 is the 1. So when we take a look at the entire tune, especially when we get to the bridge, it's basically just minor 2-5-1s. A minor 7 flat 5, D7, G minor 7. Now with minor harmony, it's a little bit more tricky than the major diatonic series of 7th chords because you can harmonize 3 minor scales with 7th chords. You can harmonize the harmonic minor, the relative minor, and the melodic minor, and you're gonna get different results. But a 2-5-1, important to know, is pretty much every single time gonna be an A minor 7 flat 5 to a D7, a dominant 7th, to a minor 7th chord, a 1 chord. Now, when we look at all of There Is No Greater Love, pretty much almost exclusively, with a few exceptions, it's all minor 2-5-1 chord progressions and major 2-5-1 chord progressions. So do you think by learning this tune and getting 2-5-1s, being able to play chords, the comping, being able to play bass lines, being able to improvise over them, if you really study this tune, do you think it's gonna help you in all the rest of jazz? Absolutely, because 2-5-1s are just everywhere in jazz. So having mastery over those is going to be really helpful going forward. Reason number 3 is another important concept that comes up a lot in jazz, and it's the concept of what we call secondary dominance. Okay, so a secondary dominant by definition is taking a dominant 7th chord and using it to tonicize another diatonic chord in the series. So again, going back to our major diatonic series of 7th chords, let's go back to the concert C minor 7, and D minor 7 is our 2 chord. But if I wanted to tonicize that, all I have to do is put a 5 chord in front of that 2 chord, and that's what we call a secondary dominant. So the 5 chord, D minor 7, would be A7. So if I go A7 to D minor 7, that secondary dominant is making the D minor sound like it is a new tonal center, even though we're still in the same key. So we see this happening in There Is No Greater Love. For example, in bars 3 and 4, there's a D minor 7 flat 5, a G7 going to a C7. C7, by the way, is a secondary dominant, but we'll leave that out for a second. You know, D minor 7 flat 5 and G7 aren't necessarily in the key of B flat major, but we're basically adding that G7 to tonicize that C7 there. And we're throwing a 2 in front of it. So throwing a 2 in front of the secondary dominant, which is the G7, makes that C7 sound like a new tonic. Now, C7 in and of itself is also not the 2 chord, right? I mean, the 2 chord is a minor 7th chord, but actually it's basically what we call the 5 of 5. It's another secondary dominant, basically saying that the C is now the 5 chord of the 5 chord, which is F. So if that's confusing, well, just dig deep into this tune and you'll start seeing this come up. This is a great introduction to secondary dominants. It happens quite a bit in jazz. And so once you understand that basic concept of how that works, you can start compartmentalizing all these concepts and make it simpler for yourself. So now if you need a process for actually learning this tune, because I highly do recommend you do learn this one, I want to recommend my free guide called Learn Jazz Standards the Smart Way. So check that out at learnjazzstandardsthesmartway.com, or also leave a link to that on the screen here and the description down below. It's going to give you a 5-step process for learning them effectively by ear, even if you've never done that before. So definitely check that out. Also check out another video I have on the screen, which is another list of great jazz standards that will really help you improve your jazz playing if you put them on your list of ones to learn. Again, make sure you like this video if you found this helpful, helps me out, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.